Good afternoon, everyone. Let's call the meeting in order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
The Harbor Commission meeting on, May 2019?
Commencing at 5 p.m. And we have a quorum present, so I think we can dispense with going with a roll call of the members here. But who is one of the members that are, any members who dialed in?
Doug Metchick.
Hi, Doug. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, yes, this is Doug by phone.
Hi, Doug, by phone. So from the chairman's report, we have the budget still to be voted on later or it should be voted on probably in the very near future, if not already now, but we haven't gotten the results of that, but we don't expect any changes to it. And we'll speak about the Pat Carroll Memorial later on. I've moved that to other business so that it'll be a recurring thing for updates for the meeting going forward. Other matters, nothing of great significance. We had the Pequot Yacht Club commissioning over the weekend, and thank you, Michael, for attending. It was a beautiful event.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was. I really enjoyed it. It was. We had a tremendous day, and it was great to get to meet all the folks there and to participate in the ceremony as well. So.
It's an important pageantry of the club, and it's really well appreciated by all of us to have the visiting guests, like from the Harbor Management Commission, the harbor master attending, lots of dignitaries from the town. One standout visitor was the sailing vessel Brilliant that came from Mystic, her home port. She was originally owned by Briggs Cunningham, who sailed it out of Southport Harbor for many, many years, and he was the one, as many of you know who he is. He was an America's Cup sailor. He was also a race car driver and a man of adventure. quite a character. Lived in the area, kept his boat there, and was very active with the programs at the Pequot Yacht Club. For example, he would tow, a string of 8 or 10 lightnings to Larchmont Race Week for the events there, which is, that's a 4-hour ride, a 5-hour ride at 7 knots. You're towing those kids in the boat. Different sense of safety management than then, but that wasn't that long ago. It was in the 70s. But in any case, the boat it was there actually earlier today. I think she may have left at high tide because she draws like 9.5 feet. It's quite a boat, but it's a museum piece at Mystic Seaport now, and you can see it there. I have other things to talk about, most of which will be covered in other portions of the updates in old business. So I'll just start right now with Harbor Master Leclerc. Would you give us the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lots going on since the last month, so bear with me. First is I reviewed and assisted an RTM member in drafting a propeller guard ordinance. As you know, there are prop guards on all the Pequot Yacht Club vessels that go out with the youth to protect people from injuries in the event someone's in the water and a prop comes too close to them or they fall off the boat. One of our RTM members is introducing a town ordinance requiring all youth vessels, training vessels from any youth program in Fairfield to have these. Really, the Yacht Club is the only one we have right now doing that. But we'll get the message out. He's trying to get the state delegation to require everywhere in Connecticut, every youth sailing or boating program to have prop guards on their vessels. The small expense, and given the lives that have been lost in the last few years with other groups on the Sound, I think he's right. It's a good thing to have, and it really doesn't affect the operation of those boats. So I helped him draft that. May 9th, I've been working with the Eagle Scout, and we culminated this project on May 9th by building, with a number of other youth, a life jacket loaner station at Yee Yacht Yard. Boat US donated all brand new life jackets, and this is sitting by the oar house and the building, And anyone who's going out and forgets their life jacket or needs an extra one or needs a child's jacket, the purpose is just to borrow it and put it back when you're done. So it'll help increase safety and visibility. We've been doing mooring inspections when we're out there on the boat, and despite me sending out drawings with all the stickers this year, some people still can't seem to find the right location and get confused and call up the various hours of the day looking for their mooring. We had a 19-foot, 20-foot branch we took out of the harbor to dispose of that was tangled up in one of our mooring lines. It was pretty big. Went to a DEEP seminar for harbor masters and marine police. Went to the meeting and have been working, trying to coordinate blessing of the fleet and the water aspect of that event taking place on June 13th in the harbor. Went to a meeting with Jeff, Michael, and Aiden about the lower wharf naming. Also, I've had some discussions with the contractor regarding the lower wharf and the waterbound activities. Last Thursday, I believe it was, I was out there and the fire department installed surveillance cameras at Yee Yacht Yard in 2 different locations.
That's fire.
Fire department, yeah, they had money in their budget and they decided they're going to be getting a nice new fireboat, and since we had other assets of the town, and since they'd like to watch the harbor for an event something does happen, they put 2 of them up. One of them at the little building aimed out, the other one by the metal Yee Yacht Yard floating dock. They both have 360. They both go to the command center with all the other cameras in town. So if there was ever a call or an incident, they can watch them instantly.
Since that was perfect that we left that on hold for
Exactly. He asked when we were going to put them in, and I indicated the commissioner did not have the funds to do that. And the chief, or the deputy chief, I guess he is, said, "We'll take care of it, Brian. We have money, so that's the best kind of money, not yours, and you'll have access to it, and it's going to be wonderful."
You're gonna have access to it when you need it?
Yeah.
Great.
And they also have, just so you know, a new drones in town on the firehouse buildings. And these drones, they're going to become almost first responders, for lack of a better word. So if there was an incident now, whether it's a fire or a crime or a call that someone's in trouble, the drones take off from the roof of the police station or the fire buildings and can go right over a location where a call came in, and they have heat sensing devices on them, so they can hopefully see someone in the water if someone was in trouble or there was a report, and they give you an exact location where that person is. So the technology is really evolving. It's very interesting. Buoy 4 is out of position and remains out of position in the harbor. We've had 2 phone calls and 2 text messages to the Coast Guard. They will be here as soon as they can. They know it's out of position. Luckily, it's out of position in a good way. It's just further out as opposed to somewhere where you'll get in trouble putting it on your right-hand side. We're keeping up with them. Swim Across the Sound reached out to me. They asked us to help this year with our boat because they've changed the course of Swim Across the Sound. It's not going to Port Jeff because, as you may know, they lost all the docks at Port Jeff in the ice and in the winter. They all came up, broke off. Well, come up. I know where one of them is. I'll get to that in a minute. So they're moving Swim Across the Sound from Bridgeport out to Southport, somewhere in our area. They're going to make a left-hand turn to go to the south, go out a little bit, and then head back up north, and then take another left-hand turn and go on Captain's Cove. There's a little rectangle they're going to be doing. So it's going to be coming right by Southport into our area. And I talked to the yacht club so we don't conflict with any races they have. So if you remember 2 years ago, they had a big regatta the same weekend. I didn't want them to be in the same area. So we'll work on the course and the regatta so no one's in the way of each other. So we're going to help them with a medical boat. I have a doctor coming out on our boat because they don't have that. And this way, if they needed the help, keep an eye on things, we're going to do that. May 12th, went out there at sunrise with Save the Sound and Conservation Commission for water sampling in our harbor. They take 4 water samples out every other week. Since they don't have a boat, Aw Shucks is being cut into pieces, and their new boat is not purchased yet. So they asked for help, and we're glad to help them, learning a little bit about their sampling, the water temperature, the water quality, the turbidity in the harbor they're monitoring. So I talked about the dock. The docks broke up at Port Jeff. Well, 2 of them washed up onshore west of Penfield Reef near Pine Creek, and I've been coordinating the 4 or 5 days last week with the property owner, the police, and Public Works to get it off. We could not get it off by land because there was no access for the excavators or the tow vehicles. So it ended up Saturday morning, the police were able to get their biggest boat there, tow them off, and bring them back over to, not our direction, they had them go to South Benson. where Public Works was gonna drag them up and dispose of them. So we were able to take care of them after some work. May 15th, John and I went out, and we had the pleasure of escorting Brilliant into the harbor because she draws so much. She has to come in dead center. So we gave her a guide between the two no wake warnings, showed her how to come in. But most important, we met her a few miles offshore. She was under full sail on a beautiful morning at about 9:30. So John and I got to just motor next to her and watch, and it was fabulous watching that boat with all her sails up. She is quite the beauty. We went to the commissioning Sunday at the harbor. Today, I've dealt with a race mark reported acquisition by a kayaker. It turns out it was one of Black Rock Yacht Club's race marks drifting away. They were going out to pick it up and take care of it. Last weekend, the weather was beautiful and harbor activity was increasing. Saturday, we gave 3 no swimming warnings to people that decided to go swimming off of the metal dock at Yee Yacht Yard despite the 50-degree temperature in the water. We chatted with them. It's not only dangerous, it's easy to become hypothermic very quickly and drown. We transported 7 people from a moored vessel whose dinghy became inoperable from their mooring back to Yee Yacht Yard, so they had a way to get home again. Gave warnings to 2 stand-up paddle boarders for going out without their life jackets on and paddling around, which is very unsafe. And Sunday evening, we assisted a grounded vessel about 100 feet north of the North Anchorage who had an hour and a half to go with the falling tide, but managed to run himself high and dry. We made sure the passengers were safe, offered them a ride in. They decided to wait it out for 4 hours before the tide came up and they could make their way again. They were safe there. Also, I'm very pleased that some new legislation was just passed, something I've been talking to Deep about, and that is kayaks, paddle boards, canoes have no registration on them, as you know. The issue becomes, when you find one, what do you do with it and whose is it? You know, we found one about 2 weeks ago, a yellow one off of Southport. The question is that one that just broke loose, or was someone out there and they fell off of it? Now, do you do a search and rescue with the Coast Guard? Do they have to come out with their helicopters, or what do we do? So Deep agreed, and now there's a new law requiring you to put a sticker with your name and contact info on your paddle board or your kayaks. I've got a stack of the stickers already. This way, if you find one, it's an easy phone call. Hey, do you know where your kayak is? If they say, my husband's out on it paddling to Penfield, and we find it alone, that's one thing, versus it just breaks loose. So I think that's really just a good safety thing, and it's just a matter of just a sticker at no cost, no registration fee. It's an easy thing to do.
And a Sharpie?
And a Sharpie, a waterproof Sharpie. So I have a waterproof Sharpie and a bunch of these, and as I see kayakers, I'll be handing them out, offering to do it for them. So we can hopefully label everything in the harbor so we know we find something where it came from. Or even those of you that have them on your boat, label them as well, if they fall off.
I informed Community Sailing about their kayaks, and they're going to try to do that.
I've got the stickers if they want. The
Okay.
stickers.
I'll
Put
tell
them
them.
right on it. Okay, wonderful. We have 2 open moorings, one at the lower wharf. We only put one of them in so we wouldn't get in the way of the construction activities. But because of someone else getting off, we moved one of those boats to the eastern side of the channel, so I'll have one to assign, and also we revoked the mooring of someone on the west wall who did not register in time. He was our commercial fisherman. He hasn't been following the rules, so he's been booted as having a mooring, and we have another one available that's now going to be assigned. And we have 2 more large sailboats coming in the Helix area because of vacancies or people moving, took them off the waiting list. So this will be 4 or 5 boats this year. We're making progress with that. And lastly, Saturday is the marine ceremony we're going to at South Benson Marina in the morning. If you've never been to it, it's really what Memorial Day is all about. It's a great ceremony. They honor those that served and that died in the military. And they read the names, and they have veterans arise, depending what conflict they were in, and they lay a wreath in the water. So that's it's a nice event if you're looking for something to do in the morning. And that is our brief report. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a couple things.
Yeah.
Just to point out, for interest's sake, this weekend will be the Block Island race, which leads from Stamford around Block Island and back. And sometimes you can see them, depending on what the wind and currents are doing, fairly close off our beaches. You can see the flotilla going on Friday evening and maybe throughout the day Saturday or very early Sunday morning if there's some stragglers. But that's kind of fun to watch. But I forgot to mention in my report that the Pequot Yacht Club did receive a final determination that they could proceed with the replacement of the dock. So I think that's moving forward as planned, and that's underway. So,
Couple comments, Mike.
please.
Brian, you mentioned the propeller ordinance.
Yes.
I believe there's a state statute that says any local ordinance affecting the operation of vessels has to be reviewed by DEEP before it can be adopted.
I'll remind our town attorney, he was looking, the RTM member asked me to help write it, which I did. He just submitted it this week to the town attorney to
And then
go through, and I'll remind him of that.
The surveillance cameras and the drones are interesting. This come up in Stanford. Stanford has 911 drones along the waterfront that are immediately dispatched to a problem. But last month we heard from the police department that they're working on a policy for the operation of the drones and also the surveillance, the cameras that addresses issues of privacy. And what they can view with the drones and what the cameras can show and so forth. And they were working with the law department to come up with a policy for the use of the cameras and the drones. We might learn more about that tonight. Not sure what the privacy issues are, but thanks.
Follow up.
Yeah, please.
When you mentioned the surveillance camera by the institute by the fire department, Jeff, you said that there was a process in our commission to do such a thing?
About 2 or 3 years ago, we talked about it quite a bit, initiating it from this commission. And we decided for whatever reason that we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
But I was just commenting that, thank God, because we'd much rather have somebody else do it than us.
Yep. As a member of the public, I once put it out there that we needed, would have been nice to have a weather station. And I was told that the Historic Commission frowned upon that at the time with the yard structures. But obviously the Fairfield Fire Department gets what they get, gets what they need.
Well, the interesting thing is
But the follow-up is,
I know you're going with this, yeah.
could we add a weather station?
I'm going to look into that because I asked them about that Friday and they ran in a high-speed cable. That was part of the issue is how to get the signal out. They ran in a whole high-speed internet cable that they're paying for.
It looks like a fiber optic to the telephone
Yeah,
pole.
they put a whole new thing up. So I'm going to look into it. The other thing is if any of you have SailFlow, this is where I access it. It's an app on the phone and it's free.
Yes.
There's a buoy off of Southport right now. If you click on it, it's the PYCA mark we call it. And I can get real-time data from it. For instance, right now I know the winds are, looks like they're gusting to the low 20s, staying 15. I can have the direction. So it's very cool. You just look at it, you can all see that that's A mark. So you can get some.
Yeah, Pequot Yacht Club, A Mark is the A Mark right off Southport Beach where most of the races begin.
Is it a floating
It's
station?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a race mark.
It's
Big orange,
Yes.
construction cone, right?
it's two big orange garbage cans
Yeah.
attached to each other on top of a float with the A marked on it.
I follow that, and I was wondering how it was managed. It's an actual floating
So it's got,
photovoltaic thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more of them too, a lot of other clubs do, but that was, an easy fix.
That's nice, because if we got a weather station, you have the in harbor conditions, and then you have the sailing conditions.
Okay, anything else? Mindful of time, we're just really getting into it, but one thing that I omitted to do was the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. But there's two matters. The meeting from March had
17.
Because Jan wasn't able to attend, this young gentleman took the minutes, which were requiring a fair amount of fixes, and we had some fixes to be made. Now, explain what you want to do with it again this time.
So we were thinking to redo the minutes, but I spoke with Jen Carpenter and she told me, no, we can't do that. We just have to vote in the amendment. So you can review them again, and if you have any corrections, you can send it, and then we can do, next meeting, we can vote on any corrections.
So any changes will be in the form of amendments,
Correct.
which we'll vote on at the next meeting. And we'll disseminate those prior to the next meeting. Okay? But that was a little confusing because of protocol. Next,
All of you have those minutes, right?
the original ones.
Yes. So if you can review them and send any updates, and then we can vote on them next meeting.
But the meeting minutes for the April meeting were with your agenda, and do we have any discussion around what was in that? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the April meeting of the commission?
So moved.
Second? Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Passes. Thank you, unanimous. Okay, then we can move on. Harbor Management Legislation Initiative, Jeff, would you update us on that?
We weren't successful, I say we, the number of harbor commissions that were trying to work with the Environment Committee this past legislative session, and the understanding that we have is because it was a short session, and typically with a short session, the bills considered are discussed before the session starts. So I know also now that the city of Groton is interested in working with everyone for the next session, New London, Norwich, so we're going to proceed again. And there's some changes at DEEP. The director of the Land and Water Resources Division is retiring as of June 1st. That's Mr. Thompson. And the attorney from DEEP, who was most adamantly opposed to this legislative initiative, is taking a job in the private sector, so there'll be a different group to deal with. And I know the city of New London is pursuing, pretty aggressively the completion of the harbor management plan with the establishing the recommendations that we feel are appropriate with the authority of the Harbor Commission, just like we're doing here. So we'll see. That doesn't affect what we're doing now. We'll just move forward, not forget about it. Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Tide Mill dam repair update, Mr. Stedman.
Well, Tim Bishop, the conservation director, informed us that his grant application to the Long Island Sound Ecosystems Program for monies to support the repair of the dam was not accepted. We don't know yet what the status is of the application for the coastal site plan review by the owner to town planning and zoning. We have been talking about it with DEEP, and it seems pretty clear that DEEP is not going to enforce any sort of repair of the dam. That they would just as soon see the dam's not in place anymore, just as took place with the Bolsey Pond Dam. So then that leaves the question of what are the next steps if there aren't sufficient funds to repair it. And noting in the harbor management plan that the basic policy is to protect the existing historic character of the harbor, and the dam is certainly part of the historic character of the harbor. And Chris and I have talked, and George, it's my opinion that the Harbor Commission's authorities and jurisdictions are focused on this, or just apply to this just as much as any other town agency, and more so. So we'll just have to keep our ears and eyes open and see what does take place. But again, I think it's pretty clear, based on our conversations, that DEEP is not going to enforce the repair of the dam. And then that leaves the question of what effect will that have on the mill pond up above. And I know that there are interested property owners who would hope to have their voice heard and passed on to the... DEEP is the principal regulatory agency, and the Harbor Commission has the closest relationship, the statutory relationship with that regulatory process. So we'll just be alert and
So our obligation at this point is to wait for the coastal site review process to come our way.
And I think also, to learn more what we can about the likely end result or what effect it may have on the harbor, but just like any other issue, to understand it and to share information and be willing to listen to people who have information to present. But right now, we don't have any specific document that we have to produce or
Okay.
hearing we have to convene.
Any questions?
Is there any information on the cost of repairs?
Should we address public comments now, or?
No, let's wait until the end for public comment, if you wouldn't mind. That's the way the agenda runs. But we do, for that question, there is some information on the certificate of permission about the cost. I don't remember the number right now.
Could a group of private citizens get together and put money together to do the repair? I think that's what that question about the cost is leading up to.
It's very interesting. Again, we're discussing an issue and, you know, we're not giving anybody directions. But a couple of weeks ago, when I was down taking pictures of the dam, and a fellow was fishing nearby with his young son, and we had a nice talk, and then he told me that he was the previous owner of the Oakley Pond Dam at Sasko Brook that failed. And he brought up the idea of perhaps he would talk with other property owners and see if there would be a way to establish a nonprofit group that could contribute to repairs. But again, that's just something we'll have to keep our eyes open for, and ears open.
Yeah.
I would ask, another question is, what are the ramifications to the harbor? Does anybody have any idea what the ramifications are to the harbor if this dam collapses and then, heaven forbid, we have another hurricane that comes from the right direction and water is pushed up the river and then released because the dam's not there?
Well, let's address that in public comment. But to the answer, I don't think we do know, except the way things have been going so far. There's already been, you know, a change to the flow of the water due to the breakage of the gates. And we've seen the change in the harbor. I haven't seen any change, but it's...
You haven't seen?
No. Okay, so let's move on now to the Lower Wharf rebuild.
Mr. Hurley thought he might be able to stop by today, but he's been down to look at it. And I guess it was last weekend, and there several people remarked that the level of the pier seemed to be not very much higher than high water. But Mr. Hurley said that the project has been reviewed, that Race Engineering is providing, not oversight, but review of the work in progress, and he thinks everything is according to what was planned and permitted. They put the pilings in and the deck in, and you see today they put part of the concrete on the north side of the wall. Of course, it's not going to be, it doesn't know when work will be completed, but it won't be completed, as we know, in time for the blessing of the fleet. And Bill will keep us up to speed. But he said Race Engineering is providing project management, if that's the right word, for the town. And they haven't identified any problems with the work. So I don't know if there's anything more to report about that. When I talked to Bill earlier today, he still didn't have a time period for the completion of the work. They'd hoped to have the pier finished by Memorial Day. He doesn't know if that will be achieved, but the work on the walls is progressing.
It has creeped a bit. I mean, I think the original dates that we were looking at were, you know, the end of spring and beginning of summer, sort of June, end of May, beginning of June. Now it looks like it's fully through June, and looking like it's dripping into July. This work is not being done on our behalf. It's being done at our request with the town, the Public Works.
Oh, yes.
Correct?
Yeah, we're not. The Harbor Commission is responsible by deed for managing the property, but this particular project to repair and restore the wall is overseen by the Public Works and Engineering.
So what I'm saying is we have interest in the best use of the harbor management area to have that up and running so that people can use the pier. But can we ask for an update from Mr. Hurley and the Public Works? What's the delay?
Oh yes, we can do. We know that the delay in starting the project had to do with working out the contract with the contractor, and also having agreements as to closure dates and the completion of the pier. So he had reported on the delays in signing the contract, and when I spoke with him today, he didn't have an end date to predict for the completion of the work, and I'm sure as soon as he does, he'll tell us, and we'll keep asking him. But right now, we don't know, and Bill doesn't know either.
Okay.
The pier won't be usable until all of Lower Wharf is finished.
Oh, yes, and that affects it affects the Blessing of the Fleet program and the street parade. I can report on that now if you wish, or wait till later. But it's however you wish. The parade is not gonna go to the lower wharf, as we know. We'll circle around from the church and then go up, back up, and the bands will end at the Pequot Library, where the hot dog sales will be. And so this year will be interesting because there won't be any public viewing. The clergy will be at Ye Yacht Yard, but as I learned today with Mr. Russell, the police are gonna block off Harbor Road and not allow pedestrians and people to go down from the Perry Green area down to Ye Yacht Yard, although the clergy will be there. And the Perry Green will not be available because that's being worked on, which I didn't realize until
they're receding. It's a pity because that was the blessing of the fleet, not the parade. It was the parade went with the blessing, but the whole act of shooting water on the boats with the priests saying they're giving their blessing has taken sort of second seat to the parade itself, which I guess that's the way things evolve, but there it is. So we heard about how that was going to progress at the last meeting, and you know, it is what it is. It's unfortunate that you know, the project is taking as long as it is. In future years, it'll get its momentum again, and I think hopefully the actual blessing of the fleet and not just the parade will have equal share.
And Tim also said that this year Sasquatch has been handling the fundraising. So he's asked if I mentioned if anybody has a group that hasn't made a contribution yet, he would ask me to say that. The fire truck and trucks with the water arch will be at Ye Yacht Yard.
Yeah, but no one will be there to witness except for the boats. So
except for the boats, right? And we have to. The pancake breakfast will still take place at the Southport School, but we're going to have to redesign the program a bit, but there's time to do that.
Okay, so any other questions on the Lower Wharf rebuild for tonight? Or on the parade report that we heard? Nothing further. Move on now to the Pat Carroll Memorial Committee. Mr. Ver?
Yes, we had a meeting on the 14th, which Brian the clerk kindly anchored. Ada McLaughlin and Jeff Stedman were there, and myself. It was a teletype visual call-in meeting. We all basically agreed that the preferred way of making a dedication to Patrick Carroll was to dedicate the fishing pier at the Lower Wharf itself. But there's apparently a procedural problem with that at the moment because we don't physically control that, in my understanding.
What do you mean? We don't?
Well, if we put some plinth or something to dedicate that pier to Patrick Carroll, we have to ask the Public Works or whoever is responsible for that.
Well, there's that also. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I thought Brian had typed up, the approach to doing it. And we talked with Jennifer Carpenter also and shared the deed. The deed of the property specifies that the Harbor Management Commission is responsible for management of the facility. So the understanding was that the Harbor Commission on its own initiative can determine or specify the naming of the pier. But then in addition, we would ask that the select board or the RTM take action to make sure this is in perpetuity. And Jennifer.
This is what you guys discussed at your meeting.
Yes.
Yes. So we
came up with the
Brian, and I know, sorry he left, but typed up a resolution for consideration by the commission.
Okay, I hadn't seen that.
Oh, I assumed he had sent that. Because he.
Well,
I can read the resolution.
No, let's have that in written form and shared to look at the next meeting.
Well, then I think we want to. The question is Jennifer will move forward with whatever action is necessary by the RTM and the Board of Selectmen, but needed you know, the minutes of this meeting to base that on. And
Well,
then,
we need time to actually consider what we're talking about. This is the first we're hearing of it as a body, and I would prefer to put that off to the next meeting where we had a chance to think about it. Let's have some discussion about the idea of having the pier named after Pat Carroll here today, and then we'll look at the documentation to be provided to the town that would put it into perpetuity, and then we'll, you know, I think we should have the look at. Could you share with us the language in the deed that says that it's for, would you send that to the other commissioners on this?
yes,
And then we'll be able to discuss it and finally vote on it next meeting.
but could we tell Jennifer that it is the understanding of the consensus of the Harbor Commission to name the public fishing and observation pier at the lower wharf, that it shall be known as the Patrick L. Carroll Memorial Pier?
I don't think we can do that until we've deliberated that and voted on it as a commission.
Which means you'd need to have that written, in order to do that.
Correct.
I thought Brian had done that, but, so we wrote that, but the concept or the way that we'll proceed by sending this to everybody for the next meeting is that the commission takes an action that should be named the Patrick L. Carroll Memorial Pier, which the commission has authority to do, because it manages.
I know, we just said that. So you'll share with us the specifics in the deed that give us this obligation and responsibility and right.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have the document from Brian that gives us an understanding of what it is that we're asking the town officials to proclaim as to its perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be able to have a final discussion and vote at that meeting, right?
And hopefully that will be in time for when the pier is dedicated, when the work is completed at the lower wharf, that the announcement can be made that this is the Patrick L. Carroll Memorial Fishing Pier, or Memorial Pier.
So there's a third thing, that we would want that to be done at that time. So I mean, that's something that we as a commission need to vote and decide upon, that we want to have it dedicated at that time, because that's being proposed by your commission, by your subcommittee, and you guys have recommended that to us. So that would be another new recommendation that we're hearing. So I'd like to have it all.
That's a little of the timing concern I'm gathering. That's
I'd like to have all of the recommendations in hand before we as a body decides.
So my understanding is we also control as a commission the timing of the dedication of the pier.
I think so.
Yeah, I would thought so.
Mm-hmm. And whether we have one, I mean, it sounds like I don't want to put words in people's mouths or minds to anchor anything to cause a vote to occur here right now. I think we should do it right, do it judiciously with the information we need in hand. But I sense, and I think we all do, the will of this commission will be to do just that, okay? That we will have this done. So I think that's where we're headed, but let's do it right, okay? That's my feeling on it.
If that's put in the minutes tonight, that it is the will of the commission to proceed this way, might that be enough for Jennifer then to?
No, I think what we should have is a decision and a vote by the commission that will take place at the next meeting, and we'll do that.
I'm not sure we've really had a consensus, you know, because, I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because, I know we don't want to discuss this now.
No, we can, why not?
Okay, because one issue is that for 150 years, that's been called the lower wharf. Now we're changing kind of history. There's a historical importance to the name that's been attached to that pier for 150 years, and now we're changing it. And I'm not completely convinced that's a good idea. There's a lot of history there.
But I mean, it's not like it's the Jeff Warren Wharf. It's the lower wharf as opposed to the upper wharf. You know, it's kind of more of a geographical designation than, you know. But it is what it's been. So I mean, if you were going to the lower wharf, that's where you would go. Now you would go to the, you know, instead of the Tappan Zee, it's the Cuomo Bridge. I mean, things like that happen. And I'm not saying that that's what we need to do, but it is because we have to ask and answer these questions with adequate time to consider that I want to have this done at the next meeting. But there's a question, I'm sure you have more.
So my what I was thinking was that we were naming the fishing pier
Yes.
after.
Not changing the name of the lower wharf in any way.
Right.
Right. So the grass area, the property will still be
That's the lower wall.
referred to as the lower wharf.
yes.
Referred to it has to be in maps of that.
And that was a topic that came up several years ago when someone had suggested we might, when we were talking about signs and so forth, that we might want to change the name to the Lower Wharf Green. And we said that that's not appropriate. It's an historic site. It's known as the Lower Wharf since that site was provided to people to build boats.
So what's the difference between a wharf and a pier?
The wharf is the whole property, Chris. It's not just the pier at the end. The lower wharf is the particular property, and that's specified in the deed, that the property will be known as the lower wharf. We're talking about
Just a structure on the lower wharf.
we're talking about the pier structure at the lower wharf.
Does that alleviate, Jeff? Does that alleviate some of your concern?
I guess it's kind of semantics, but,
It is.
you know, I'm just concerned that on these historical maps, it's listed as a certain way. And we want to see that change because,
Oh, I would agree.
Hey, Chris. Chris, this is Doug. Sorry to interrupt. Interesting for the librarians in the group. Technically, the definition of a wharf is that the platform parallels the shoreline, but you can only access the water from one side of it. And a pier, you can access the water from both sides, for those who are interested.
Okay, there we go.
The deed makes clear that the property located at 1085 Harbor Road, formerly known as the Trebs property, which is to be known hereforth as the lower wharf. And that's in the deed. It's the whole
So
property.
if you wouldn't mind sharing that bit of the language within the deed with us so that we can all be voting and considering that together.
And item 11, responsibility for management of the premises shall rest with the Fairfield Harbor Management Commission.
Great. So if you could share that with us, that would be perfect for the next meeting. Okay, any further?
So maybe just one quick question from me, Michael, is as far as I know we kind of, last time we had a discussion about this, it was like, subcommittee was thinking about a couple different alternatives. It sounds like the subcommittee decided that this was the best one of alternatives. So could you maybe just share a little bit about what was the thinking that went in behind that in terms of why this one seemed like it was the best alternative? Is it just because we have less interaction with other people, or what was the kind of how did you guys think about the options and why this one was arrived at?
Part of the thinking to start with was just simply to put a plinth somewhere on or about the lower wharf, because that's often where Patrick Carroll would go every morning virtually.
Yeah.
But then extending that same principle, it was thought more appropriate to use the new pier, fishing pier, really, which is attached to the lower wharf, to dedicate that to Patrick Carroll, and that became unanimous.
Yeah.
That's how the development went.
Yeah.
But then, after that, I knew it was pointed out, there was some problem about how would one differentiate that, who would be responsible for it, and where we'd exactly put any plinth or label or whatever.
On the pier itself.
Our main thought that was to put the actual, so we say, brass plate on the fishing pier or attached to it.
Yeah. So what the brass plate looks like and where it's positioned is another topic.
Yes, right.
As far as
we haven't done that.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I believe in the work of subcommittees of the commission to do their work so that the commission doesn't have to do all of it as well.
Right.
And we're relying on you to have vetted the options, a renaming of the fishing pier, putting a gravestone on the site or whatever things you might have considered, a bench, I don't know what. All those things have been considered and set aside for various different reasons, and we rely on your best judgment for that. So that's the work of the committee, and I stand behind that. So unless there was a close second to the renaming of the pier, of the fishing pier, you know, I would say that we ought to just go with that, but then do our proper diligence as a commission to understand what it is that we've done.
Just might add what Michael said, and Michael spent some time at the yacht yard itself, looking for places at the yacht yard and suggesting where there might be some sort of a sign or a plaque. But when the committee came up with its recommendation to name the public access pier, that wasn't to eliminate other things in the future. That we felt was the simplest and most appropriate thing to do at this time, while we spend more time looking at and with Parks and Rec for doing, and Brian had suggested, another memorial that would address the work of other people and not just Pat at the yacht yard. So we put off that, not to say we're not going to do it, but to put that off because thinking of the schedule for rebuilding the pier and having a dedication, this was the simplest and that made most sense, we felt.
Okay, so at some point in the future, there may also be a broader recognition and memorial for others who have been, you know, great. Kim Taylor's mention over here, that sort of thing. But, you know, whatever that may be in the future, that's something separate. We're talking about something for Pat Carroll only here. That's what we're doing. So, and where you landed on was this.
Yeah, and that was my understanding. It was just the dedication to Patrick Carroll. Yeah.
Not the multi-dedication, which might or might not include Patrick Carroll, but the Patrick Carroll.
That's right.
And we didn't want to conflict with Howard Burr's memory because of Howard Burr's association with the yacht yard. So that we didn't eliminate anything.
That's a separate thing.
It's a separate thing that we would continue to work on. Right. And Brian had some ideas about it.
So you know, what we're doing here and now is we're saying that between now and the next meeting, this commission will deliberate and will consider this suggestion by the subcommittee, and we'll vote on it then. In order for us to have a proper vote, we'll need to have the deed, the language specific to this action that we're taking from the deed to be given to us for consideration, the language that Brian has written up that would describe the town's memorialization in perpetuity of this action that we're taking, and any other considerations that we might want to consider, that we put on the table and consider before we go forward, and we vote at the next meeting. I mean, it's important for us to take due consideration for something that's going to be in, you know, be set aside for forever, to actually do the thinking through all the way through and not rush it through. Okay, so at least until next meeting. Okay? And is there any other side items on this topic to bring up so that as we think about it between now and the June meeting, we might have these items topmost in our minds?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on now to the mooring committee.
Okay, I don't have a report. I'm working on it though. We have a contact now who can get us information about our expenses and revenues for the past couple of years. We can update our data on the finances of the moorings, and the biggest thing is how appropriate are our mooring fees going forward, and have expenses going up to justify an increase, or is everything fine? So I should have that for the next. I hope I'll have it for the next week.
Yeah, but I would agree that, you know, we don't have. I'm accustomed to seeing financial statements for all sorts of business activity that in my business life, but we don't really see that as a commission for mooring, which is our biggest area, and just a general budget. It's sort of highline. It's wave tops instead of the detail.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to get enough detail that we can make a rational decision.
Great. That's it?
That's it.
Any questions on moorings? Their moorings are going in. Their boats are coming in fast and furious. Okay, moving on now to Harbor Management Plan update. Kim, do you want to update or?
Go ahead, Jim.
All right, well, we haven't worked on any particular sections since the last meeting. Kim and I have talked now about, well, actually we have, about the final chapter being the plan implementation chapter, which we would have for review, a committee review before the next full commission meeting. We have prepared the most recent Google Earth images to use as the new base maps for the maps that were in the report from 30 years ago. We've talked about some of the key, not implementation. We're talking about is responsibilities for implementing, both from the state, the federal government, the Harbor Commission, the Harbor Master, other town agencies, and also private entities, including the Pequot Yacht Club has a role in managing the harbor. That's in the final chapter, and that's where we would include the specification that recommendations of the Harbor Management Commission, not just recommendations in the plan, have to be listened to by DEEP. But in terms of the principal things that are different that we have to address now that weren't in the original plan, is including now the understanding that DEEP will allow the dredging of the full 100-foot width of the navigation channel. We also did not address the lower wharf in the old plan, because the lower wharf wasn't owned by the town back then. And then also whatever we might want to say about sand management and incorporating the different dredging, the different dredged areas. So Kim and I will work on this and have a committee meeting before the next commission meeting. And I've talked with the Port Authority about this too, and they understand that part of the delay in this was in large part to see what was going to happen with the legislative initiative the last 2 years, but also to reach the final approval of the dredging project with a 100-foot width. It's now would be a part of the harbor management plan. And have to figure out how to deal with the sand management, by the jetty, which we still haven't figured out how best to address.
So there's the process would be, the draft of a new harbor management plan updated would be presented to the commission for its approval, and then it would be sent to the RTM or to DEEP or to what?
Before the Harbor Commission would act to approve it, we would bring in DEEP to DEEP to provide comments before there's any official action taken by the Harbor Commission, because it requires, interestingly, it now requires both approval by DEEP as well as the Connecticut Port Authority, and we've been talking with them about what's involved. So we have the draft plan. We discuss it with DEEP, and then we'd also need to do it properly, to have a public meeting to get public comments.
So it's from that subcommittee to DEEP, to public comments, and then what? Harbor Management Commission?
Yes.
And then the RTM or not?
No, because the RTM doesn't act on it until after DEEP approves it.
Okay, so then back to DEEP.
And the Port Authority.
And the Port Authority. And then back to the RTM for approval.
Right.
Okay. When it comes to did you get that? I want to make sure we get that in the minutes and we understand what that process is. That's something we need to make sure we understand. When it comes time to have this document before us, now, having worked on this myself with this as a subcommittee with Kim and Jeff and Doug, the structure of the document itself has changed. And then we've added chapters and we added. So it's not going to be something that's going to be, as many of us are accustomed to, having a red line version compared to the old one. So you'll be able to see exactly what's changed. So what we'll need to have for us to deliberate, and I would imagine other entities as well, is we'll need to have that document that in some way is the equivalent of a red line document so that we can intelligently comment on it.
We did redline the goals and the goals and objectives and the policies, because we redlined that for those sections. And then the project recommendations, we'll figure out.
So that's something we need to have clearly given to because look, from my standpoint, this is like, an amendment to the Constitution. We want to get this right. That has worked very well for us since 1994. So let's make sure that if we're making changes to it, it's going through every little bit of our best effort to get it right. Okay?
Yeah, and I think the management recommendations are also in a form that's suitable for showing those areas that have been eliminated and those areas that are added.
Well, that's what I'm saying, just as long as we have something that we can understand what was and what is now, so that we can intelligently comment it. All right, well, any further questions on the harbor management plan? Sand management plan.
Well, it's sort of a comment on the harbor. The more I've dealt with this, and I realize in talking with Jeff that this is something that I think I've changed it to the South Harbor dredging plan based on what Jeff was saying. And he's talked about it being part of the harbor management plan addition. I think what this should do is move into that area. My proposal would be, I started on it. I think it would be better to be in the committee with the harbor management plan, so it becomes encompassed in what they're doing, because it's long-term thinking. And I think the issues that we've raised with the sandbar and the silting in the public work areas should become a separate, that we work on targeting the SHIP grants that are coming, and would propose that what we do in the coming weeks is develop a plan that we could take to SHIP to ask for a grant, putting in types of the money that we think is involved. And we have that meetings in Parks and Rec to talk about, and you probably can address this, how much depth we need at low tide for the emergency boats, the harbor master boats. And as I sort of represent the sailing club, we went down and measured it, and our boats are going to be on the bottom anytime the tide's below is a negative tide. So that public dock also needs some deepening to make it useful for what we are. And if we're not going to maintain community sailing, that's part of the whole dredging network. So I think that's what we need to bring that proposal to Parks and Rec. And I think we need to have the sand bar proposal put together, that if the SHIP grants occur, we're ready just to hand it in.
But we know now that they are going to occur.
They are? Okay.
Yes, there's going to be a second round of the SHIP grants, and we can submit, all towns can submit applications. It'll be open on September 1st. So that we're going to need to think about putting together an application and what we would apply for. And I know Brian was interested in the environmental permitting and design and permitting for adding an extension down to the yacht yard docks to accommodate police emergency vessels. And then also the Port Authority has told us, reminded us again that that we should consider applying for a grant to come up with a plan, or at least an analysis of the movement of sand over the jetty. And they said that we can do that if the country, even though that's private property, we could apply for the grant if the country club agreed to it, or the country club itself could apply without any commitment to having to do anything. But it would be analysis of the problem.
Yeah. So, a few things. One is you're as we've discussed up until now, my understanding has been to prepare a document which collects the various different areas of dredging or sand management to be considered now and into the future.
Correct.
So that we have that as a working document to bring up, we're going to talk about the North Anchorage, we're going to talk about this one. We pull out that document and say, page 73 is this. And we all are speaking from some, and there may be new information that comes along that we update that. And the question would be then, does that become part of the harbor management plan? And I think probably should in some form as an amendment, an addendum, as an attachment or something like that. But that's a separate item and part of the harbor management plan. We still need the document to work from, or at least in parts, particularly in those parts that are current. And what the two, so that's my one feeling. Now, that there are 2 points that are current, right?
Correct.
There's the one that you mentioned at the Parks and Rec area where the community sailing is, and the other floating docks where the first responder boats go and the harbor management boats, the harbor master's boat go, all of that, which is seriously need of dredging. It's in the hands of Parks and Rec, and I look back at my notes, I should have contacted them to find out where they stand on all of that from a standpoint, and to urge them onto it because of the need to address safety issues as they apply. If first responders can't get in, that's a safety matter, right? So I will get to that now, and so that's that area, and for the resilting of the area that shoaled again after our dredging, and we're concerned about future winters where nor'easters sweep more sand across from the country club into that narrow spit in front of the lower wharf. I'm in contact with the Country Club of Fairfield, but they are in the midst of their normal season activity, which is golf related, and so I think they're not answering the call right now. But
I also have the name of the person on the board that is part of community sailing that I have not contacted yet until you give me permission to ask.
He's a member of the Country Club, man?
He's also a member of the country, he's on the board. If I could contact him and say we're interested, so that we get another member on the board starting to think about this.
So they know we're interested. Why not speak to him? I mean, why not? I would totally support that.
Well, I didn't want to without letting the committee.
I appreciate it, but I would support that. I mean, the message that we're saying is that we support any action that they would have, that they might take to prevent future shoaling of that pinch spot, and to forestall more dredging coming up sooner than we'd like. So if they get to that, that's an excellent thing. And if there are SHIPS grants to support from the Port Authority of the state of Connecticut that will support engineering studies that have not already been done, or to recheck the ones that already have been done, and to come up with action plans that the Country Club of Fairfield, might agree to take, I think that's a good thing.
And develop the permitting language that we would need to do to make the plan actual, to get that finished. If that could really be all part of the.
What do you mean, permitting to move the sand?
Well, you'd come up with the design, and then you come up with what you need to present for a permit at the same, make it a process where we've got a finished product that if we're ready to proceed, we could move.
But we need to encourage the country club to do so. We can't actually tell them to do so.
Correct, but I'm not sure that the SHIP grants to develop it needs the country club's permission for us to develop a plan that they may have to agree to.
Jeff said that if we were to approach, didn't you just say that if we wanted to approach a SHIP grant?
My understanding is that the Harbor Commission, any Harbor Commission can apply for a grant that affects private property if the private property owner gives permission to do that.
Right, and we would have to ask them to give us permission
to apply
to do that. Now, it's not putting any burden on them or any future responsibility.
It would take a burden away from them. We're getting financing for these sort of engineering things.
Correct.
But to tell them that we could proceed with that with your permission, because these things will become available, and if you could tell that engineer, and I'll tell the president of the club, why not? Let's move the ball forward.
There's no pain to anybody other than being ready to solve a problem, and they want the sand also. So
it's the same thing as we did.
It's the same
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And we hired Race to do it. They ran a model. They projected the.
I get it.
The rate.
I mean, and let's do that. Let's continue to put the pressure on the Country Club of Fairfield to consider taking action and supporting them by actually saying we could go to the Port Authority of the state of Connecticut and gain a SHIPS grant, considering but with your permission to do so. So
that's what I would support that we try to do.
So what we're saying, I think what I'm hearing is there's a document that contains all of these areas of interest, but there are two current ones. One being the lower, the Yee Yacht Yard shoaling, and the other being the continued re-shoaling of the area at the pinch point of Southport Harbor opposite Country Club of Fairfield.
Which we've identified as the two most critical items.
Those are the two
The
live
rest
items.
of this is long-term planning.
Yeah.
And probably should be part of
Probably.
that kind of committee. And I would be happy to work with it in that area with
Great.
Kim and.
So that, I think that's excellent. So I'm in the interest of time, because we've already eaten up an hour here,
But
so.
just one other thing to remember is the dredging around the yacht yard, that was the Harbor Commission's project. We applied for the SHIP grant, we applied for the permit to do that project and to dredge that area. We were not able to do it because there was no other source of dredge material to provide the cap of it. So that permit lapsed. So one approach now is to redo, if we think that we were able to get rid of that contaminated dredge material, is to redo the permit. But that was the Harbor Commission's project with permission from Parks and Rec.
Okay.
But we did the application, the Harbor Commission got the grant, and I believe that the permit was issued in the name of the Harbor Commission.
All right, so I'm clear on that. And that's my responsibility to contact Calabrese from the Parks and Rec to find out where they stand on all of
And
that.
Chris, I'm happy to meet with them if they want to talk to someone. I do need to talk with Brian and people to get the right depths and things that they need for the boat so that we could talk, but,
Yeah, I mean, okay. So I think that would be something that the engineering group would be putting together, Race or someone else that we would use for that, with,
so I'm
support
hoping
from-
we can use the old permit and add the thing that there is now a place being developed where we could take that material, that we might be able to
If there is.
piggyback on something else.
Yeah, there's,
When did it lapse, and is there a public access to the permit itself, part of the record?
I'll just provide the permit.
And it lapsed, what, 2 years ago? 5 years ago?
Lapsed several years ago. We asked if we could transfer the money to rebuilding the pier at the lower wharf, and we were told we couldn't, but thanks to the efforts of the town's legislative delegation, we got a separate grant for the wharf pier.
So for like 2023.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Thanks, Jeff.
So on the agendas for the next meeting, I'm going to add under the harbor, or the sand management plan, that the two items of current interest of the yacht yard and country club areas, okay? And we'll report specifically on those. Meanwhile, the larger document, in concert with, or however that will work, with the harbor management plan will go on as well, okay?
Yes, but I've included Kim and, Mr. Steadman's been involved in it all along, so they've got what I've developed, and I'm happy to work with you guys.
Anything further on sand management? Any questions?
One other thing, I don't know if it's old business, but we have the mitigation area on the country club property where we transplanted the plants. Our obligation is to also make a determination of how successful that was. So DEEP is at some point going to come down and look at to see how the plants survived. The Corps of Engineers has asked that we contact the botanist because we're going to we need some sort of assessment to see what the survival rate was. The botanist says that he can't do that until August because that's when the plants will bloom, and he can therefore tell if what the survival rate was. And the Corps said if its survival rate is nil, they may have to purchase plants and bring them in. But that's something we still have to complete. And DEEP has not come down yet, but at some point they're going to want to come down and look at the site. And the Corps asked if we could get the signs up, during the beach season that we talked about, just do not disturb signs. But the Corps has asked us to contact the botanist and see what his availability is and when he can do the assessment.
We'll wait for updates on that. Thank you, Jeff. Anything further? Outer Harbor Channel Dredging Project.
And that's what we're also working on now. Brian has provided information to fill out that harbor information form that the Corps of Engineers needs. We're working on a narrative to describe the importance of the project to the community. That's the title of that section. I will be seeing the project manager in Stamford on Thursday. She said it's not necessary for her to come visit because she knows where the Outer Harbor Channel is. So we should be able to get that harbor information form with a number of boats. We've got, Travis from the Yacht Club did a nice job of providing the information on the Yacht Club's boats and services, and Brian with the moorings. So that's in the works, and, that's gonna be, again, it doesn't happen right away, but, that's our next project, working with the Corps of Engineers.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, and we've also provided information on that to the Congressman Hines' office through his legislative assistant. That was several months ago.
Very good. Last item is status of projects to consider for available Port Authority SHIPS grants. I think we talked a little bit about it before as it relates to, potentially for either Yee Yacht Yard or the Country Club area. Beyond that, are there any other projects that are... Okay, there's none, so
We have 3 months now to develop that. And
we have 2 to consider,
Yeah.
but we don't have any others, is what I'm saying.
No, but also what the Port Authority will expect is when we apply, and again, this will be a 50% matching grant, but what they will expect is when we apply for the grant is that we have a professional estimate of the cost of doing it. So, I'm assuming the logical group to ask for the cost estimate is Race, because they did the permit for the dredging and the docks, and also did the previous sand management. So if we decide to pursue that, we'll have to ask Race to provide an engineer's estimate of the cost, and then our grant application will be based on that.
So the 2 applications would be?
Well, there's only one that's crystal clear, would be if let me see if I can state this clearly. So we will tell the Country Club that there are these grants available, and with their permission, we will apply for one with the clearly defined costs that there's Port Authority consider, which would be split between the Port Authority and the Country Club of Fairfield.
Well, I'm not afraid of the estimate because we've got a lot of data from the last work. All we have to do is update equipment costs, all we need is cubic yards.
Well, you may not be nervous about it, but the Country Club of Fairfield might be. They're the ones who have to pay for it.
Right, but we can prepare it and talk with them, and then, yeah.
But it's one thing that we're talking about 2 different things, the actual doing the work, and then there's the analysis that goes into getting the permit to do it. And if we were to apply for the SHIP grant, then maybe we could get contribution from the Country Club, but the Harbor Commission would if we applied for it, we'd be expected to put up half the cost. What's that? If we,
The study cost.
The study cost. I'm not talking about actually
Just for
doing the work.
planning of the sand management.
The engineering study that the Race would do, to supplement that one from 16 years ago.
We would have to pay.
It wouldn't be the Country Club that has to pay for that, it would be us.
Well, it could be that if the Country Club decided to contribute some of it to it, then that would be all right. But there's gonna be a 50%
Right.
cost match, either through the Harbor Commission or the Country Club.
Okay,
Ideally,
we need to make sure the Country Club understands that one.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right,
if
and then they
balk
may
at
say
that-
no, but if they say no, and we say, well, we'll pay for 50%, where does that money come from?
Well, that's what we'd have to figure out, and then that would affect whether you'd apply for the grant or not.
At all, yeah, okay, so that's news to me. I thought that if we were making that application, it would be on behalf of the Country Club.
I don't think we want to make an application on behalf of the Country Club. They could do that on their own. We could make it, well, we think about it. But also, there's also such a thing as a deep permit for an engineered beach. And the town, Bill Hurley brought this up, the town has that for Sasko Beach and Southport Beach. And it has a beach profile that they can maintain. And if it erodes, they can bring in.
Who's they?
They being the town of Fairfield for the.
Public Works.
And so the discussion was, well, maybe the Country Club of Fairfield could get a permit for an engineered beach, and they could manage their beach according to the profile that's shown in the permit. If parts of it erode, they'd be able to move sand around without having to get a permit all the time.
Rain.
Wow.
Well, so it's 6:15 now, and I'm thinking that we ought to shut this down. But this is a new proposal altogether. We haven't heard this one before. So before we go to the country club, we need to understand what it is that we speak to them about, whether we're speaking to them just about pursuing a SHIPS grant on their behalf, or we undertake it, where we pay half, and if we have to pay half, where are we gonna come up with the money? Or there's a managed beach approach that would be yet a different approach that would require give me a second. That would require an engineering firm to do their work, as well as applying to DEEP for the ultimate approval for that. And then, the Country Club of Fairfield would then have to follow through on the action plans of such study that would result in that managed beach.
I think the managed beach is an end result. It all begins with an analysis of the problem, and how to solve it. And one of the ways that it could lead to is a permit for a managed beach or an engineered beach.
Okay, so then that's not what. Now I understand it. Okay, so we go to RACE and we say, we've got this problem. What do we do about it? They could say, well, you can move buckets of sand over here. Or you could, there's this other process that is more long-term, which is a managed beach process, and that's something that you might want to consider, and here's what it would look like. Okay. Is that right?
I think we can discuss it.
No, it's not right?
No, I don't think so. I think what we're asking...
Can we table this to the next meeting, and
Yep,
we'll work
we'll do
together
that.
and try to make it...
It's about as clear as mud right now, so let's see if we can tighten that up. Okay. Any other matters for the commission today? Any new business?
One comment, and I'll stop very quickly. We had our exhibit at the Earth Day event at the YMCA, as we've had the last few days, and it was very well received. We had photos of the harbor and the estuaries of the town inside. The first select woman came in and looked at it. It's a little bit different than the past years because we were the only exhibit inside because it was good weather. But Mill River Wetlands had directed people to come in, and I think it was well received. And just for the information, the Mill River Wetlands Committee is having what's called Founders Day annual event on Thursday night at the Congregational Church. And the significance of the Founders Day, it was 1967 when Joyce Shaw, I forget exactly, she stood in front of a bulldozer someplace to keep work from affecting the environment, and that was the beginning of the Mill River Wetlands Committee. So that's at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. I wrote down the name of the church. It's the First Congregational Church on Beach Road, if anybody would be interested in attending. That's all I have to say, Chris.
Thank you, Jeff. Any new applications? Public comment?
Yeah, thank you, Tom Carell. What else do you need? But, I'm elated to see that you guys are looking to get subcommittees and people to do things, that your mission includes protecting the character of the harbor. And Chris, is your comment earlier that had something to say about no evidence of effect of the broken dam on the harbor itself. Was that taken before the other two?
It's purely anecdotal, just my observation. I'm not seeing any changes.
My question is, you've got years of history here amongst this group, and the first gate was gone. Was that the time you made those observations, or was it after the other two were removed and a big chunk fell out? Because that's information that would be nice to know.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I haven't seen any changes myself, observed any changes to the harbor since before they weren't broken. The first, second, and third were broken, no change.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, I don't really, it's an anecdotal comment that really has no scientific basis.
That's fine.
And what you would want to do is say, well, here's a baseline to compare it against, and what that baseline is, what you're measuring is still yet to be defined.
I'm with you on all that. So, I'm upriver. I'm not a scientist that goes out and measures rivers. Believe me. Trees, maybe. But it seems we're okay with going back to DEEP and save the sound and all the others that are involved in this type of activity and let the dam go, or the dams go. And DEEP's not enforcing it. So it seems that based on very little information that we collectively have, myself included, we're doing a crapshoot. I would add that if we have a drought worse than last year's, and next year's news in the paper causes alarm about future droughts, it seems that we're going to get reduced flow into the river. If Aquarian manages to get up to the 14 million gallons a day that they can pump out before it gets into the river, what effect's that going to have on the downriver part of the, had two big insults and, we could be in hot water. Wouldn't it be appropriate for one of your subcommittees to be focusing on the river and the aspects of it that could harm the harbor? And I don't know what all those things would be, but there are scientists that do this stuff, and certainly there are people at DEEP that have some sort of a background in some of this stuff. I guess that's the short and sweet part of it. And, it would be really nice if you would spend the amount of energy that you spent talking about the sign for the change of the sign to have some of that energy going into the change of the river. Thanks.
Point well taken. Thank you very much for your comments. Again, we would need to know what to measure and say what are we seeing a change in the way the harbor is being used by the public? Have the fish population changed up or down? Has the salinity of the water changed such that
all of that?
All those, yeah. I mean, we have to do all of that.
People that must know that stuff, and you guys.
There are people who would come and do that if you asked them to do that, and we'd have to engage them to do so. Right now, the issues that we're seeing, I believe, are upstream, and we're not seeing them in the harbor. So that's where we kind of stand on it.
Well, my dilemma on this whole package is that the tide still goes up and down. And when it goes over the top of the dam, it goes up a little bit higher, of course. And the dam gates are designed to let it retreat slowly, and so on and so forth. There's people that know that stuff and that research that stuff. There's been research done in the Mill River, I think, by the Conservation Department, and Aquarian has. But it would be really great if you guys could collectively say, hey, let's get some of that information and make an intelligent decision like you're doing on the other 4 or so projects that you just discussed. That would be my challenge to you.
My comment is, I think I don't believe that we should be dealing with the river upstream and the environment and that. That is DEEP's authority. DEEP has the people that do that kind of work. I think you're asking us to take on work that's outside what we can do. We are talking about looking at the dam structure, and that, in my opinion, if we go beyond the dam structure, that's not in our expertise or our authority.
Yeah, I think that if, I hate to say this because I feel for you, okay? But if we were to be getting complaints from people using the harbor area, the tides are changed because of this, the fish available have changed, the plant life has changed. These things have changed, and we don't enjoy the harbor as we once did. That would cause us to have to step up and do a study and then possibly educate us to take action on what we learned in that study. But we haven't been hearing that, and I'm hesitant to start spending commission money to engage with an engineer to measure things that we don't know what to measure to solve complaints that we haven't received. except upstream.
Could we start with Tim Bishop and have him make a presentation at your meeting and say, forget about it. Forget about him, you know, it's his problem, you know, or what's happening in other places. Tim's a great guy. He knows a lot of stuff conservation-wise, and he's got some great experience, you know.
Just in past involvement of the Harbor Commission upriver, the commission had a significant role in reviewing the aquarium plans for the diversion from the Hemlocks Reservoir. And we didn't know what the impact was going to be downstream on the harbor or the river, but we thought that there could be. And as a result, we wanted the process to be able to address that. So without knowing, we didn't have an understanding of the specific impact, but we were involved in the process, both in the public hearing and providing information. And again, without knowing ahead of time exactly what the problem might be, or if there would be a problem, it was something that the commission felt was within its purview to be involved with.
Well, we were asked to comment, and we did comment. We wrote a letter saying that we found it to be consistent with the amount of water that they said we would be taking. You, Kim, as a chair, wrote that letter, right?
We didn't find it consistent. Our argument was that there should be, that DEEP should approve, if they approve that aquarium permit, that it should be approved with a requirement for Aquarium to measure the flow downstream of the dam. And Aquarium refused to do that, and DEEP didn't make them do it.
Okay. But I mean, that was the extent of our comment. So you're right, we didn't say that that it was consistent with the harbor management plan. We didn't say that. We said that we had some, recommendations which they didn't listen to.
Mm-hmm. But we also participated in the public hearings and in site visits and discussions and involved with review of information throughout the process.
What I believe is Tom Stanky at the time did get them to provide a measuring station at the farm bridge. It's there, and it's been renovated with the bridge, but at the time, I think there was a reconsideration, and they actually did put a measuring station.
They funded the restoration of an existing station, but they did not place anything downstream on Cricket Brook after.
All right, look, in consideration of your time, at 6:30, we've already passed this. I'm going to say that we should table this for future discussion as to whether the commission should take this matter up and take further action with further study or something along those lines.
Or education.
But what we'll want to do is have some recommendations, specific recommendations to vote on before we're not just going to sort of concoct something, we're going to actually take the recommendation, so, okay? With that, any further comments? I call the meeting adjourned.
Hi, I'd like to...
Thank you so much. Hello?
Hi. This is Chris Linford, Brunson Road. We've been to meetings before. I just wanted to quickly say something and just mention that the filamentous algae is increasingly growing this year. And I think that you will see soon enough that it is going to get into the harbor, because we've never had it before. In the past 6 years we've lived here, we have never had an algae problem on Mill River. But because of the dam and because the river water level is so much lower, already at this time of year, the filamentous algae is growing incredibly. So I do think that will become a problem. And I do think eventually, as it starts to get over the dam, as I saw it all today, because it is so long and so intensely growing, I think that will become a problem in the harbor. I also would like to say two things about Aquarian and also about the Exide project. Everybody seems to review everything and everybody seems to make suggestions, but they never get carried through with DEEP, and they never hold any weight, and they never really go anywhere. So nothing ever no amounts get set to things, and no oversight actually ever happens. So that is a concern across those the Aquarian and the Exide with the dam.
Change your senators.
I think a research subcommittee would be...
Name and address.
Oh, sorry, miss. Can we get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Chris Linford, and I'm at 634 Bronson Road, and my husband and I have, been attending the past couple of meetings. while this is going on.
Thank you. Thank you. Has conservation been alerted about this algae problem?
So this is obviously going on this month. It started. So they are having a meeting tomorrow, and it is on the agenda, and I'll bring it up. And I will gladly send photos to you, and I'll gladly send photos to them because it's already, it's only May 19th, and it's already like pretty serious. And like I said, I've never seen algae like this in this river in the 6 years I've lived here. So I don't know about before remediation and everything, but I have never seen it.
Thank you very much
So
for your comments, and
Thank you.
we'll look for
Thank you.
more information.
Yep,
Any
great.
further
Thank
comments?
you.
Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.